Dr. Casey Means, I feel like I know you because you are generous with your time and you do a lot of interviews and podcasts and you answer everybody's questions with patience. And I've got a lot of them. But I'm so excited because you have a new book out called Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health. Welcome to the Fox News Rundown.
Dana, thank you.
One of the things I read in your book in the introduction is what you wanted to do with this book. And I think we should start there. You said, I want to share a vision of health that is big and bold. It predicates health and longevity on something simple, powerful, and absolutely fundamental. A single physiological phenomenon that can change almost everything about how you feel and function today and in the future. It's called good energy. And the reason it has such a life-changing impact is that it governs the very essence of what quite literally makes you tick. And you go on from there. So let's start there. Tell me about putting this all together as a book of your life.
Well, the healthcare system is so lost, Dana. We are so lost. We are so confused. The more we spend on healthcare, the sicker Americans are getting. It's completely unsustainable. For every marginal dollar we're spending on healthcare for Americans, we're getting sicker. And life expectancy is going down. We're not even keeping life expectancy stable. It's going down. And I've seen this inside the system. I trained at Stanford. I trained as a surgeon. And the realization that really prompted this book is that we are buying into a system that is predicated essentially on a lie, which is the fact that the body is somehow separated into like 100 different parts. We have over 100 medical and surgical subspecialties in America. And as we specialized more, we're actually getting sicker. And the reason this is a problem is because that system is profitable. The more doctors you see in your lifetime, the more it creates profit for the system. And there's this incredible devil's bargain right now between a $4 trillion healthcare system that profits off patients who are sick and a $2 trillion processed food system that wants us addicted to food that's making us sick. And so what we really need to reimagine for the future of the healthcare system for both individuals and the system at large is a system predicated on the actual truth of what the science is actually telling us, which is that almost every chronic disease and symptom we're facing in the modern Western world is fundamentally rooted in one thing, metabolic dysfunction. And it's a problem that we can understand with simple testing, we can improve it quickly, and if we do a lot of these symptoms that are torturing American lives across a lifespan will melt away. But that is the biggest blind spot in healthcare, and it's a blind spot because siloing and waiting for people to get sick and then treating them is profitable.
Tell people about the moment when you're in the operating room and you say, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. Meaning that you could do the surgery, but that you didn't want to have to do the surgery because you thought there were other ways to get people healthy.
Yeah. 4 years Stanford undergrad, 4 years Stanford medical school, 4 years surgical training. I'm sitting in the operating room. I'm in like my 4th sinus surgery of the day. I'm looking down at this patient. It's her 3rd revision sinus surgery. I know we're going to go in there. We're going to drill into her sinuses. We're going to suck out the pus. We're going to send her home. But something hit me in that moment, which is that I'm going to suck this pus out of this person's sinus, but am I actually doing anything to make this patient fundamentally healthier? She had all the other American comorbidities. She had prediabetes, she had depression, she had arthritis, she was overweight, and none of that's going to change based on the surgery that I'm doing. And I realized in that moment, I'm like 8 years into higher education, and I have no idea why this patient is actually sick. I know she has sinusitis, and I know how to medicate her and operate on her, but I don't actually know how to make this patient truly healthier. And that's what I got into medicine to do. That's what most doctors go into medicine to do, but it's not taught. We wait for people to get sick and then we mop up the floor. We have to go upstream and figure out how to turn off the faucet. And that faucet, that connecting physiology that's leading to so much of the suffering is metabolic dysfunction. So that's really the secret that is honestly being, I think, aggressively hidden from medical education, from how doctors practice, from the guidelines. And we have to change that if we are going to heal Americans and actually move towards a country that is thriving again, because our society is built on humans and humans are built on cells. And right now, the vast majority of Americans, our cells are very sick.
Do you think with a new generation of medical professionals that are coming up through the system now and being educated and getting more things like your book and listening to these podcasts, that there is maybe a counter-revolution underway? Do you see some hope?
I do see some hope, and there is light happening, and I'm very, very optimistic. I'm optimistic because of a couple of things. One, there are trailblazers in this space, people like Mark Hyman and David Perlmutter and Andrew Huberman, and people who are actually bringing this to the forefront. But what you see from a lot of media is that these people are being attacked. These people, there is an all-out war on the messengers who are giving people a sense of personal empowerment in health. Because if patients are actually very blind to understanding their health, and if they are separated from their medical information, they are more controllable and they're more essentially exploitable for profit. In over 22 American states, patients don't even own their own health records. There are so many barriers to even understanding our own body. And many of us have the experience where we're getting crumbs of information from our doctors once a year about our own bodies. But there's a couple trends that are happening right now, some emerging trends that I think are extremely hopeful. We have a direct-to-consumer revolution happening in healthcare where we see a lot of entrepreneurship in the space. This is, of course, why we started Levels, to give people actually their own information about their health markers. We're seeing incredible companies like Function Health and Inside Tracker doing lab testing that you can literally click a button online and be able to get.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Tell people, what is Levels?
Yes. So Levels is a company that I co-founded and was chief medical officer of. And its mission is to give people their own information about their bodies so they can make better decisions about diet and lifestyle. We enable access to continuous glucose monitors, which is a wearable that you wear on the back of your arm that tells you about your blood sugar 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and sends that information to your smartphone.
So I did it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we were going to talk about that maybe offline. No, I thought it was fascinating. I remember when I worked for President Bush, he said on all issues, and especially he was talking about education in particular, K through 12, you can't fix what you don't measure.
Yeah.
And I thought when I did it for 2 weeks, that I had a pretty good understanding of when I would have a spike, right? Like I remember one of my treats at the airport are Mentos.
Yes.
Because and I know it's not true that sugar and calories don't count at the airport, but you kind of want to believe that for 1 second. And I do think there are better options at airports now. Many airports have like better food choices and things. But I will never forget watching that continuous glucose monitor, watching the spike of the sugar after I had some of those was shocking to me. Yeah. Never had them again. There's also this one machine here at Fox that, God bless the Murdochs, put it into the offices, and they have this one vanilla latte drink. I could not believe it. I've never had one since. Ooh. So what kind of is interesting to me was the fact that my doctor doesn't know that. My doctor doesn't know that I have Mentos at the airport. I have to take responsibility for my health. Like nobody, you can't necessarily outsource this. You have to take responsibility for it. I also think that social media influencers is a problem. Because you can get on that social media train and then that you just keep getting that content over and over and over again, like whatever it might be, either over-exercising, under-eating, or you could have it the other way, which is how about this, how about that, like all the cooking and everything. To stop all of that, to try Levels just for a little bit, to get the information so that you can make better decisions for yourself. That's what I thought Good Energy really helped me with, is to think about continuing the journey that I have to own it.
Yes. People are very confused about health, and there are so many voices in the nutrition space, the health space, the fitness space, and everyone's confused. And so a lot of us are spinning and feel paralyzed. And the beauty of some of these personal sensors like Levels is that you can cut through all the noise. You don't have to actually trust anyone but your own body and yourself. And there's been these fascinating trends like on billboards the past 5 years, trust the science. And it's like, in trusting the science and trusting the experts, what's happened? We're the sickest high-income country in the world. Our life expectancy is going down.
Not only that, but the number, like in some of the polls looking towards the election, not asking you to talk about politics, but it's remarkable to me, having been involved in politics and media for so long, healthcare remains like one of the top 2 issues.
Yeah.
It's economy and healthcare. Healthcare is expensive. Worries about not having access to healthcare. But one of the things that you talk about in this book is that there are ways for you to even reduce those bills for yourself if you have figured out really how to deal with your metabolic health.
That's right. That's right. And these days, it's actually quite simple to test. There's 6 or 7 biomarkers that we can get every few months that can tell us exactly where we stand on this key foundational aspect of health. And if we can track those and have a basic understanding of them, which I think every 8th grader in the country can understand these basic biomarkers, we can cut through all the noise and say, yes, I know where I stand and I know my choices are working for me where it really matters. And I think that's a new level of empowerment that we've never really seen in the healthcare conversation before.
I wasn't planning to ask you this, but now it's popped into my mind. Like, what do you think about, I guess it's good for consumers that have insulin problems or diabetes that need to take insulin, but the Biden administration and Trump tried it as well to try to get the cost of insulin down. One of the reasons we don't have a lot of insulin is because the supply is not there, because we don't make it a lot of it, et cetera, et cetera. But now, it's like, okay, I can get my insulin, it's affordable. That's good. But at the same time, you could be doing things that you don't need insulin at all for some people.
Yeah, for people with type 1 diabetes who cannot make their own insulin, lower prices of insulin is absolutely incredible and life-saving. What we've done, though, is we've taken the paradigm for people who cannot make their own insulin, which is it's only 5% of people with diabetes have type 1 diabetes. It's 95% that are dealing with lifestyle-based type 2 diabetes. And in late stages of that disease, we give insulin, which actually doesn't do anything to solve the root cause of the issue. Because the root cause of the issue is actually a problem with our lifestyle and our environment and the cell's response to that. So unless we're really incentivizing ways to clean up the environment, we're not getting to the root cause.
Okay, so in this book, one of the things that I found is you have a chapter called 4 Weeks to Good Energy. And then you said practicing simple good energy habits is an act of rebellion. So we've talked a little bit about that already. I started taking these quiz that you have here. This is like in women's magazines, they would have these quizzes. I'm a sucker for them. Yeah. I started filling it out. I was like, because I think I'm a fairly healthy person, right? And I was checking these things. I'm like, wait, I don't do that. Oh, I don't think I do that. Especially like the getting out, making sure the sunshine every day. I'm like, well, first of all, I live in New York. There's not a lot of it. But like, do I go outside every day? No. As you can see here in the book, I stopped taking it because I was like, whoa, it's too much. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to do this.
The purpose of these quizzes is to help people understand, based on what the science tells us, the full landscape of things that impact metabolic health, just really comprehensive. And the idea is not to make sure that every single one is happening, but it's to be aware of what factors in our modern environment are affecting this core foundational aspect of our health that underlies all other aspects of health, which is metabolism. So as we think about our food, as we think about how we eat and our meal times, who we eat with, as we think about our sleep habits, our movement, our relationship with toxins, our relationship with sunlight and blue light, our relationship with temperature, it's about having that awareness of what are the levers I could possibly pull to get towards the health outcomes that I really want. I think a lot about my mother, who I talk about in the book.
You dedicate the book to your mother.
It's dedicated to my mother. She is tragically, like so many Americans, someone who was dependent and totally faithful to the healthcare system and was let down by it. She unfortunately died far too early after 40 years of missed warning signs of metabolic disease, saw all the different specialists, but she never healed. And when I think about this section of the book with all these quizzes about, all the factors that affect metabolic health, I think about if my mom could have known where she was really pointing the arrow of what really would have mattered in her choices, she could have done so much better because she was trying. Yeah. But when we throw our effort at things that maybe aren't really right at the problem, it's wasted effort. So I really want to get people focused on what actually matters.
It's a remarkable book. I also really appreciated the recipes in the back. And your blog is called what?
It's CaseyMeans.com.
I love it.
Thank you.
And you can sign up for the newsletter. They're great emails, are thoughtfully done. And again, like some of these things like California cauliflower rice hand rolls sound terrible. You know what? They're good.
They're really good.
They're actually really good. So you have really, you've partnered with some people to do some of those things. And I think it's an excellent book. I highly recommend it. I did ask my fellow healthy travelers on Twitter to send me some questions for you. So if you don't mind, we'll go through a couple of these. First of all, can I ask you one that Jesse Waters is bugging me about? Yes. He thinks that cold plunging is a must do. And I said, I will never, ever do that.
We got a cold plunge, Dana.
That? I cannot imagine doing that. Like, honestly, I think I would rather do so many other things than that. kills me. But is it a good thing to do?
It's really good. I would say of all the pillars, and the pillars are food, sleep, movement, emotional health, toxins, light, and temperature. I'd say light and temperature, or temperature is probably the lever that is like a nice to have. We got to get food, sleep, emotional health, and exercise right. Those are absolutely paramount. But it's a lever we can pull because cold, fascinatingly, is a thermal energy source that basically tells our body make more heat. And how do you make more heat? Your mitochondria do more activity, and that's moving towards metabolic health. It's also you feel your dopamine goes up like 200% after you go in a cold plunge. So there's this elated feeling that I think Jesse's probably talking about. But we got to.
I'm gonna have to tell Jesse he's right.
There's a beautiful spot in New York called Othership that has the most beautiful cold plunges I've ever seen, and they'll coach you. So could be a fun thing for us to do.
I would honestly, you might have to knock me out for me to do a cold plunge. But okay, I might do that. Here are some folks that ask a question of intermittent fasting, yes or no?
For sure. Yeah. The average American right now is eating over a 15-hour period with 11 eating events per day. We are eating constantly, and this never gives our body a chance to rest. It never lets our insulin levels fall, so we're constantly being exposed to glucose and insulin in the bloodstream, which is not good for our health. I think that when we think about fasting, it feels extreme, but really it's just getting back to eating during the normal times we're supposed to be eating, which is during daylight. We are diurnal animals that have metabolic pathways active during the sunlight time of the day and rest pathways activated during the dark. So if we're eating during the day and during the night, it confuses our bodies. So when we think about time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting, it's actually really just about getting back to eating during the times when our body is primed to be metabolically active and digest. So I think a good place to start there is if you're an average American eating over 15 hours, move it to 12. Just eat during a 12-hour window, maybe get it down to 10, but that's going to be better than most Americans.
All right. Here's somebody who asks, do you have a feeling about boosting energy and metabolism after the age of 65? Do you like cardio and walking, or do you support weight training?
Weight training, 100%. Every postmenopausal woman in America needs to be lifting heavy things regularly. It's a scandal that there was a whole movement about, women doing more cardio and yoga. We need to be building muscle. We lose muscle every single year after the age of 35. And Dr. Gabrielle Lyons' book, Forever Strong, everyone should read it about weight training. But muscle is our metabolic armor. And especially with women and osteoporosis rates, muscle, having that thick layer of muscle on your body is going to protect you from that osteoporosis, and it soaks up all the glucose from the bloodstream. It's incredible. So I would say
important for men too.
Absolutely important for men, but women are doing so much less of it. So we need to be weight training every muscle group 2 to 3 times per week. Heavy weights, and then we need to be walking at least 10,000 steps a day because that's going to be building muscle and then using glucose. So that's really key. I think cardio is wonderful for cardiovascular health, but resistance training is unavoidable for postmenopausal women.
Okay, here's this one's kind of simple. Is it beneficial, and if so, why, to drink apple cider vinegar with water in the morning?
Definitely. There is great research suggesting that vinegar, and specifically acetic acid in vinegar, to lower blood sugar responses throughout the day. If we take it 10 to 20 minutes before a meal, 2 tablespoons in an 8-ounce glass of water, it can actually improve our insulin sensitivity and may actually lower our glucose response to a meal by 30%. So it's a great strategy.
I feel like there's no question I could ask that you don't know. Is it a mistake to drink coffee first thing in the morning before drinking water for daily hydration purposes?
I will be totally honest. I drink coffee within 5 minutes of waking every single morning. It's one that I can't give up. But what people often find on a continuous glucose monitor is that drinking coffee on an empty stomach will actually cause their blood sugar to rise first thing in the morning because it stimulates cortisol and our stress hormones, which mobilizes glucose. So if you are wearing a glucose monitor like from Levels and see a big spike with coffee, you probably want to avoid that because that's basically saying you're giving your body too much extra stress. There's probably baseline stress, and then you're adding coffee, and it's just putting your body into overdrive. But if you drink coffee in the morning and your glucose levels are flat, that's probably a sign that you can handle that caffeine. If you're in that former category where you're having that sort of cortisol and glucose rise in the morning, I'd recommend, making sure you're having like a nice high protein breakfast before you drink your coffee and kind of easing into the day a little bit more.
I'm loving the new mushroom coffees.
Yes.
You like it?
Oh, yeah.
I
Like
can
Four
drink that?
Sigmatic and others. They're wonderful.
Moment is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
With some of those like calming adaptogens. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's what I need. Calming. Exactly what I need. One of the things you write about a lot is about sugar and those 4 pillars of all the things you're talking about on mental health. There's a real connection now. And Dr. Hyman talked about it on a recent podcast of his as well, which is the Doctor's Pharmacy, if you guys want to look it up, about that direct link. And so eating less sugar can help improve your mental well-being.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Hyman talks about that. There's also an incredible book called Brain Energy by Dr. Chris Palmer, a psychiatrist at Harvard, that talks about how basically, if you look at the science, almost every mental health condition across the lifespan, from neurodevelopmental disorders in children to mental health issues across the lifespan to neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's, are all fundamentally rooted in metabolic dysfunction because the brain, this is what people need to understand, the brain is 2% of our body weight, but uses 20% of the body's energy. So if our energy pathways, our metabolism, are dysfunctional, which they are in 93% of American adults, that is going to disproportionately affect our brain. And mental health symptoms are fundamentally a sign of the brain not functioning properly. So it is for anyone dealing with depression, anxiety, OCD, really anything, I would deeply recommend getting your metabolic biomarkers checked, seeing where you stand on that spectrum and focusing on improving that, because I think many people will find that it really helps their symptoms.
So if you do have anxiety, been diagnosed with somebody who has been diagnosed with anxiety, maybe has medication for it, can they get off that medication if they look at their nutrition and maybe reduce sugar? Is that a possibility for some people?
There are many people who are reversing their mental health conditions through better dietary and lifestyle strategies. And I think that's incredibly hopeful. And it is absolutely being silenced by the healthcare system because SSRIs and other benzodiazepines, these medications for these chronic mental health issues, they are Band-Aids. They're not actually fixing the root cause. And while they can be helpful for many, they actually are ineffective for a lot of people. And so a message I just really want to share is that there are other adjunct options like pursuing metabolic health that can really, really, really help.
Do you like a multi-daily vitamin?
Absolutely. I think multivitamins are almost critical in this day and age because our food is so depleted because of our industrial agriculture system. I take an incredible vitamin called We Natal, which is it's a prenatal vitamin of the highest quality, but it can actually be used for really anyone. But our mitochondria, which are, of course, the center of our metabolism, what's so interesting is that they require like 15 different vitamins and minerals to actually do their basic jobs. So you need like B vitamins and magnesium and manganese and zinc all to bind to the mitochondria for it to do its job of making energy in the body. And because our soil is so destroyed because of pesticides and industrial agriculture, we have so fewer nutrients in our foods. And so this is one of the core problems with leading to metabolic dysfunction is just nutrient depleted food. So I think even if we're eating the highest quality food, a multivitamin can be a good insurance policy.
We got through most of these questions. Hormone replacement therapy, yes or no? It's hard to say.
Probably above my pay grade,
Okay.
but
I doubt that, but not your area of
highly
expertise.
recommend Sarah Gottfried, Jolene Brighton, others who are talking about this extensively.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something just about, you talked about a little bit about the food industry and the medical industry. People are dealing with very high inflation rates, and especially in lower income places, sometimes fast food is your least expensive option.
Yeah.
It was announced today that McDonald's is going to come up with a $5 meal for the summer. It'll kick off in the summer so that people have access to that. And I get it, especially if you're trying to feed hungry kids, and you're a single mom and you're working 2 jobs and you got to get what can be done in that regard?
Yeah. I think the first thing to realize is that $5 price tag is not actually what it really is. I think that we need to realize that we're paying at least 4 times over for that Happy Meal, not metaphorically, but in real dollars for that mother. So you're paying for the Happy Meal. You are paying for the healthcare costs that will go up because of the processed food that year, but also in the future. You're paying for the taxpayer dollars for the environmental damage that food that's grown in a terrible way is doing to our environment and our food, water, and air. And you are paying literally that year for the Farm Bill subsidies that artificially make that Happy Meal cheaper. So the real cost of that Happy Meal is actually probably $20. So that's just the first thing I would say, is that these foods are artificially cheap because of really bad policy. The second thing I would say is that there are inexpensive and quick ways to eat healthy, real food. Walmart, Costco have amazing organic sections now. There are services that will ship to your house, like Imperfect Produce, that give sort of like misshapen fruits and vegetables directly to your home. And a pound of ground beef can be as cheap as, $3, and that can feed a family of 4. So I would just really think about, like, what are the simple whole foods that we can get, throw together in 10 minutes that are going to give a lot more of that amazing, molecular information in the food to our cells. I would also one thing that I do all the time is go to the farmers markets. There's now 9,000 farmers markets in the US, and I know that's difficult to get to for some people, but try and find one and talk to the farmers, because many of them have not gone through an organic certification because it's very expensive, but they're still using really good farming practices, and their food will be like half the price. Buy it in bulk, freeze it, and then just, take it out of the freezer. But that's one of the cheapest ways to get sort of bulk, cheap, pesticide-free food is non-organic, but talk to the farmers and ask them, do you use pesticides? And most of them will say, we don't. We just haven't done the certification.
It's wonderful to talk to somebody who found their purpose and is really living it and bringing us a lot of great information that we need. It's sort of like Dr. Casey Means is the right person at the right time to write this book. It is Good Energy, the surprising connection between metabolism and limitless health. Jump in, folks. It's really good. And thank you.
Thank you, Dana.